If you think you need hundreds of thousands of dollars to succeed with Facebook ads, I've got good news for you. You absolutely can succeed with a small Facebook ads budget, and in this video, I'm going to show you how. So let's start by quickly defining what a small Facebook ads budget actually is. So I would classify a small Facebook ads budget as anything less than $3,000 per month, so $100 or so per day. And I totally get that for a lot of people watching that, they would be like, that's a small Facebook ads budget. I can't spend that or anywhere near it. I totally understand. I started my business with no money. I couldn't have spent anywhere near that. I started working with clients that couldn't have spent anywhere near that. So I know for a lot of people that would not seem small, but when you've had the experience that I've had running campaigns with as little as $100 a month right at the beginning, all the way up to clients that are spending multiple millions per month, 3,000 or less seems like a good line to draw and a good classification, because there are things that need to change in terms of your strategy and how you approach things we're going to go through in this video if you are spending less than that. Within a small budget, I classify a tiny Facebook ads budget as $600 per month or less, so $20 or less per day, which is also where a lot of businesses start. I certainly started in the tiny budget category, upgraded to small budgets, and we've gone on to much larger things since. But the important thing to know is that you can succeed with a small or a tiny budget, but there are changes that you need to make. You need to do things differently than what might be the default way of doing things and conventional strategy that you may well have seen. So let's run through those now, starting with the first point, which is don't helicopter parent your ad campaigns. So a lot of you will already be familiar with this, but meta ads, when you create a new campaign or a new ad set or make an adjustment to your campaign ad set, will go through the learning phase. Now, during the learning phase, Meta is going through really fast iterations of tests to try and get you the best result. So if you set up your campaign for sales, for example, Meta is going to test who within your target audience should actually see your ads to get you the best results. And some of those tests might go really well, you get great results, and some of those tests might go really poorly and you get terrible results. They're going to test what should ad impression frequency look like. Should we do lots of ad impressions to each individual user in a short time period, or should we space out those ad impressions? Which of the ads within your ad set should we put in front of people? Which placement options perform best? What time of day is the best to advertise? What day of the week is the best to advertise? So all these variables that Meta's going to test to try and get you the best results possible. Sales, leads, whatever it is you've optimized your campaign for. So that's happening all the time. Meta's constantly testing, but they're testing much more aggressively during the learning phase. Like I said, when you first launch a campaign, ad set, etc. So your results during that time period are very volatile. You can have great results, poor results, they're all over the place. If you make a significant adjustment to a campaign ad set, so for example, you create a new ad, you change some of the settings at the ad set level, potentially even change some of the settings at the campaign level, you will re-enter the learning phase. The learning phase lasts typically, let's say 24 to 48 hours, but it is dependent on conversion volume. So the more conversions you generate, the faster Meta is able to learn because they have more data, and the shorter that learning phase will last for. So if you're working on a campaign that's generating thousands of sales a day, the learning phase can last hardly any time at all because you really quickly have a lot of data. Meta's like, right, got it, made the adjustments, new ads, understand it, we've tested it, we worked out this is the way to go, and we're off. The smaller your budget, typically the lower number of conversions you're going to generate, the longer it is going to take for you to exit the learning phase. So if you are helicopter parenting your ad campaigns, you're constantly in there, constantly making tweaks and adjustments. You keep re-enter the learning phase. You're not allowing Meta time to optimize and get you the best performance possible. So what I typically recommend advertisers do is try and set an optimization schedule. So decide, I'm going to adjust my campaigns no more than once every 7 days or 10 days. And you need to extend that time period because you are operating with a small budget and you are going to typically be generating lower conversion volumes. Now, you might set that schedule and realize that actually we could adjust more often this. We are getting good data within those time periods, or you need to extend it and go the other way. That's going to depend on your business. Even within small budgets, if you're running an ad campaign that's designed to generate leads via a lead magnet, you're going to generate many, many more conversions than someone who's selling a high ticket service will. So again, you need to adjust the time frame accordingly. There is no one size fits all when it comes to time frame. One of the most common questions I get asked, and I always say it's based on conversion volume, is how often you should be making adjustments. It's not we do it every 7 days across the board. Some campaigns generate thousands of conversions a day. Some campaigns generate 6 conversions a week. Well, the campaign that generates 6 conversions a week, it might take a month to know if a new ad is performing well. Whereas the one that's generating thousands a day, it might take 3 hours. Like literally, I'm not over exaggerating there. That can absolutely be the case. So you need to adjust the time frame according to conversion volume. One of the easiest ways, if you're like, right, how do I know what's right for me, is to use a statistical significance calculator. Free online tool, you enter in your numbers, and the calculator will tell you ad A is indeed outperforming ad B with a 90% statistical significance, right? And then you can go about making decisions. That doesn't mean that you can't do any work on your meta ad campaigns in between those gaps, 7 days, 10 days, 14 days, something like that, because you could be producing new ad creative ready to go. You could be analyzing the data, drawing conclusions and thinking, right, okay, this ad had a really good hook rate versus this ad had a much better return on ad spend. Let's take this hook and put it, the sort of analysis I talk about in other videos of how you go about improving performance. You can be doing that, but when it comes to actually physically making the changes, try and limit yourself. Don't constantly tinker. Okay, second point I want to talk about is to really, really get specific about your ideal customers and create ads that are only designed for them, both from an ad copy, messaging standpoint, but also in the creative. If you've got a small budget, you don't want to be an also-ran against businesses that have much larger budgets and are going for much larger market share. The way you compete with those bigger businesses that have much larger budgets is you say, we're not going to touch 99% of this market that technically could buy our product or service. Instead, we're going to be hyper-specific for this 1%, or sometimes even less, that we can tailor everything towards, and we can serve them better than the bigger company that is trying to sell cross-market, because we can tailor our offering, but also we can market to them in a way that really resonates with those people. It's a much better way to stand out, to niche down, and to approach things that way. A lot of smaller businesses, which are typically the ones operating with smaller budgets, they're nervous to do that because they feel like they're missing out on potential sales. But that's poor thinking. Much better to think about it the other way. You are much more likely to stand out in comparison to the competition, which have significant advantages. They're spending a lot more than you. They probably have more brand recognition. A lot more of the market may have bought from them previously. So you have loads of things to overcome. They probably have larger budgets for content creation and ad creative and production. They might be working with influencers. Like, you are up against it, against those bigger businesses. How can you win in that scenario? By being more specific. It's why they say there are riches in niches, right? So how do you go about doing this? So if you have a customer base already, you've been running ads or you generate customers from other ways, then you can do analysis on those customers and work out which customers are worth the most to you, which either buy again the most or stick around if you're on some sort of recurring or subscription model, which stick around longest. Those will typically often be the ones that give you the less headaches as well. There might be customers that you can make money from, but they're just a nightmare. We don't want to work with them. And go through those and be like, right, you know what? Out of this entire market, we've worked out that this subsection is the best. Those are the people we've worked with. Let's re-engineer our marketing messaging. It's just all about them. Talk about the things they care about, talk about the problems they have specifically, which might differ from the rest of the market, and then really narrow it in. One of the biggest reasons small budgets fail on Meta isn't targeting, it's the creatives. Because testing properly requires variations, and variations cost money. A single UGC video from a creator, hundreds if not thousands of dollars. An agency to consistently produce and test new creatives, thousands if not tens of thousands of dollars per month. And that's before you even know if the ads convert. If you're working with a small budget, that math just doesn't work. Holo flips that part of the equation. You just paste in only your website URL, and it analyzes your brand voice, positioning, and visuals. Then generates ready-to-publish ads, social posts, and email campaigns. But what makes this powerful for small budgets is the variations. Instead of giving you one creative, it can generate batches of different hooks, angles, formats, and layouts in seconds. You can tweak the size, swap visuals, adjust colors, change the messaging, translate it into another language, or even turn a static image into a video without starting from scratch each time. No prompts, no Canva marathons, no waiting weeks on freelancers. And here's why this matters for small budget advertisers. Meta rewards iteration. The people who win aren't always the ones spending the most, they're the ones testing the most. If you can create 10 to 20 creative variations quickly without spending thousands on production, you suddenly have leverage. Instead of spending your budget on creative production, you can spend it on actual ad testing. What used to take hours or cost thousands now takes minutes. For solo founders and small teams, that removes the biggest bottleneck in Facebook ads, producing enough creatives to find a winner. If creative costs have been holding you back from testing properly, Holo is definitely worth looking at. There is a link in the description and a discount code if you want to try it. So one of the classic scenarios you'll often see with a lot of businesses that go through that process of analysis is they will work out, we only want to work with high net worth individuals because they spend the most, they give us the least headaches, they're the best, either on a B2C or you could do the equivalent with B2B, right? We're only going to work with companies over X revenue. And how would you therefore go about talking to those people? Well, like I just said, think about the things they really care about from a benefit standpoint. Think about their pain points as well. So if you are looking to target only the high net worth individuals within your marketplace, don't emphasize the price competitiveness of your product or service in comparison to your competition. That's not who you're going after. They don't care about that as much. Instead, emphasize, say, the time saving or the convenience or the status associated with having a product or service of this quality or of this brand. Things that they are much more likely to be interested in. You buy this once, you don't have to bother with it again, you don't have to worry about it. And that's going to be different from the rest of the market that might be far more price sensitive or might be interested in different things. So for example, us as an agency, we specialize because we specialize in Meta ads, we specialize in Google ads. We're not like full service and do everything else. So we do this niching within our own service offerings. But within that, we will work with a broad range of different types of businesses. We work with service and SaaS and e-com and all sorts, right? We now have a large enough team to have specialists within each one of those fields. But if we were operating with a smaller budget, if we were newer, what we could do is look at all our clients and be like, you know what? E-commerce businesses that generate more than $10 million a year in revenue typically are our highest value customers. So then we would re-engineer our marketing. You'd see someone like me just creating videos specifically targeted at e-commerce businesses over a certain size. All our ads would be updated specifically to speak to those people. It would be in the messaging. It'd be, what do they care about? They care about scale. They care about maintaining return on ad spend as they scale up. They're not interested in things like lead quality. Doesn't apply to them. So we wouldn't be talking about lead quality in our advertising. So you see how we would tailor it if we wanted to further niche down in those instances, and hopefully you can apply that to your business as well. If you go over specific and find that your ads just aren't reaching right people, you can always broaden back out. But in my experience, most businesses, particularly those operating with small budgets, are far too broad as opposed to too niche. Next is to copy what already works best in your industry. There are likely bigger players with bigger budgets that have spent a fortune testing and working things out. You can analyze what they are doing, draw conclusions, and save yourself a ton of time, a ton of money in experimentation by modeling from what they have demonstrated works best. How do you do that? One of the easiest ways is to use the Meta Ads library, a free tool. I'm going to show you how to do that, right? So I'm here in the Meta Ads library. Just Google it, it'll come right up. And the way this works is you select your location, you select your category. So if you operate within a special ad category, select that. Otherwise, you can select all ads. And then I'm going to use myself as the example here. So if I enter Ben Heath in here, we can see all the ads that we're running. And you can check these out if you're interested, by the way. And you can see the details, you can see the primary text, you can see where they're running, you can see the videos themselves, the headlines, you can click through to the landing pages. You've got all the information that you would want to take a look at to see what they're doing. So what you want to do here is think about the competitors that you know are advertising well. You see their ads pop up often, they look good. You just know based on the size of the business, their marketing is really switched on. You think this is a good company to model from based on your own interaction. Then you come through to Meta Ads Library, you search for them. And then what you're looking for are the ads that have been running quite a while. So for example, if you were to do this with us, you could see that these ads up here at the top, these have been running since May 2025. So not far off a year as of the recording of this video, 9 months or so as of recording this video. Now, I can tell you right now that these ads are performing well. I know that because these are our ads. But we would have turned them off if they weren't. And that's basically true for just about every advertiser that you would look at. If they've been running an ad if they launched an ad last week, you don't know that thing's working. They might just be experimenting. If they've been consistently running an ad for more than, say, 6 months, particularly if it's longer than that, that ad is almost certainly working for them, and you could look to model from it. Now, if you're looking at bigger competitors, more successful competitors, which is what I'd recommend, sometimes you won't be able to replicate what they've produced. You might be like, okay, they've been running this ad for a year and a half, but it's a partnership ad with an influencer in the space. We couldn't afford to work with them. You might be able to, by the way. People always think that influencers cost a lot more than they do. They're wrong. But in that instance, maybe you can't replicate what they're doing. But just keep going. Keep looking at more competitors. Keep finding other options and be like, oh, we can do that. That's an interesting product demonstration video. That's a UGC video. They've actually got some static images that seem to be performing well for them. Let's go ahead and use that. And you can look to model from what works and replicate that. Save yourself a ton of time and budget and test that way. You have limited budget with a small budget to test. And also, the emphasis on testing becomes less important because what you're really looking to do with a small budget, what I think you should be looking to do with a small budget, is establish proof of concept. Can we generate leads? Can we generate sales? Yes. And then get that campaign as quickly as possible to be as profitable as possible because that will fund reinvestment. If you can get that campaign to produce a 4x return on ad spend, well, you can then reinvest more into your ad campaigns and scale them and try and maintain that ROAS or improve it and grow your business and acquire a lot more customers. It very much wants to be seen as a stepping stone that can be profitable and can work to higher budget levels if you want to succeed, grow a business and all that sort of stuff. Moving on to another piece of advice that is very important for advertisers operating with a small budget, and that is know brand awareness. I don't want you to be running awareness campaigns. I don't want you to be running engagement campaigns, traffic campaigns. I want you to be running leads or sales campaigns that are direct to offer, directly selling what it is that you advertise in order to get leads, in order to get sales, so that you can generate a short-term return on your small budget, which, like I said in the previous point, will allow you to reinvest. I've heard so many advertisers, particularly when they're new to advertising, say things like, I just kind of want to get my business out there. That doesn't really mean anything. It's like, you just want to get your business out there. Why? You want to get your business out there because you want leads, you want sales, you want that coming in. Well, much better to go directly for those things instead of running an awareness campaign and just sort of magically thinking that's somehow going to end up coming back to you in the long term. There is one very specific exception, and that's my omnipresent content campaign. Only applies to specific businesses, typically those offering a very involved purchase, so high ticket service, something consulting, expertise based, something like that. I've got videos on that in case you want to check that out. That does use either an awareness or engagement campaign structure, but it is a very different thing. We're doing it for different reasons, and we're often advertising that alongside our conversion campaigns, sales or leads. And if you're a small business, I would be even less keen for you to focus on the omnipresent content strategy and instead go for what it is that you really want. Get that return so that you can reinvest. Metas, optimization systems, and how the campaign delivers is completely literal. If you say you want sales, Meta's going to do its best possible to get you sales. If you say you want leads, vice versa. If you say you want traffic, they're going to find really clicky people. Those people won't necessarily go on and convert. Brand awareness is much better for larger companies, often larger companies that don't have a direct path to conversion. So if you think of like Coca-Cola running ads, for example, well, no one's like clicking through on an ad to then come through and buy. Like it's top of mind. So the next time you're in a restaurant, next time in the supermarket, you buy Coke products. You get one out the fridge because of the reminder, you drink it now, that creates a space so that next time you're more likely to buy more. So the businesses that run brand awareness on meta ads as well typically fall into that category where there's much less of a direct lead to the conversion. Not something we want to mess with as smaller businesses. Another tip that I've really encouraged small budget advertisers to do recently and found a number of businesses have a lot of success with this is to use your organic content on Meta, typically on Instagram, as basically free testing for ad creative. Now, this requires you to create content and it will be more valuable if you already have a bit of an organic audience than if you don't. But because we talked about before, you don't have much budget for testing. That's why we are modeling from other businesses that have done a lot of testing. But this is another great way to do it. You can, for example, produce Instagram Reels, put those out there, and then the ones that get significantly more engagement than others, you can take those, add a 5-10 second call to action to the end, and run that as an ad. You could do the same with static images, which ones get a lot more reaction. Use that in your ad, maybe add some text overlay, accompany it obviously within the ad structure, headline, etc., in order to get people to take action. And it won't always translate. So sometimes things perform really well organically and it just doesn't translate to ads. But often they do, and often it's a really good way to find extra ideas easily, produce ad creative, kind of two birds, one stone situation. We got some organic content and we got some ad creative out of this. And it can be an easy way to iterate and test and find what works. You may even find that something works really well organically, doesn't necessarily do well as an ad, but you're thinking, yeah, but we can use that concept or we can use that hook in that reel in our ads going forward. We just need to change the rest of it to be more focused. To do this well, your organic content needs to be closely related to your ads and what it is that you talk about. I would hope that would be true anyway, because that's going to help drive business outcomes, leads, sales, revenue, etc. But that's just an important caveat to quickly mention. If you're watching this now on a small budget, you can think, yeah, I've posted quite a bit of organic content. Take a bit of time and go back through and find the ones that have done well and just chuck them into an ad campaign. Like I said, maybe stick a call to action on the end and see how it does. And real quick, we've created the perfect offer for Facebook and Instagram advertisers with a small budget. We call it Facebook Ads Mastery. It's a school community complete with exclusive educational material. We also do live calls and Q&As with me and my team members. If you're interested, there's a link in the video description. The next point is going to sting for some of you, and that's to be willing to spend more on conversions than what you're currently willing to spend. Most beginner Facebook and Instagram advertisers, those operating with a small budget typically, have unrealistic expectations of A, what's possible, B, what they should expect, and C, what will allow their business to grow. Part of that is because there are many people within this space that will overpromise. It's one of the reasons why if you see, for example, the case studies on our website, the results screenshots that I put out on my Instagram stories, we cover a range. We will show the businesses that we're able to get a 20x return on ad spend for, which is just incredible and that's amazing and everyone wants that. But for some businesses, that is completely impossible. We will also show businesses that get a 3.2x return on ad spend, but have done so at scale and that's really profitable and a successful outcome for that business. It's not the massive headline attention grabbing, but it's done well and it is success and it works for that business and it allows them to scale and do the things that they want them to do. I've spoken to many beginners that will say things like, oh, I want a 10x return on ad spend. And typically if someone is talking in those terms, they don't understand the dynamic well enough. So often I've had to tease that out of them. So I might say, what are you willing to pay to acquire a customer? Which is one of the most common questions. If you ever want a Q&A with me, that's almost certainly one of the things I'm going to ask if I want to delve deeper with you. And often people say, I don't know. So I'll sort of work it back through with them. Okay, what are your customers worth? My customers are worth $2,000. Okay, excellent. So what are you willing to pay to get that customer? And someone might say, I don't know, $100, $200. I go, okay. So you're telling me that you wouldn't be willing, if you had a magic machine and you could put $400 in it or $500 in it and it just spits out a $2,000 customer, you wouldn't do it. And they nearly always go, oh no, yeah, no, I would. Yeah, no, I can make that work. Obviously, this is going to be dependent on margins. Some businesses can be much more aggressive. Like for some businesses, a 1.5x return on ad spend is fantastic because let's say they're selling software or info and there's no cost of goods associated with selling the thing and they want massive scale and they can do it. There are businesses where they spend 10 million a year and they make 15 million direct from sales from those ads and they've got 5 million profit because there's hardly any costs associated and that's a successful business outcome. There are obviously others that need a much larger return on ad spend because they do have cost of service deliverable or they have cost of goods in order to make it work. But I've seen a lot of ad campaigns where, okay, the $2,000 customer is what my customer's worth to my business. In my mind, I'm only willing to pay $200 for a customer. Therefore, I convert one in, let's say 10 leads. So I'm only willing to pay $20 per lead. And then they cap out and they can barely scale and they think, oh, the campaign's not working. I've got them at $25 a lead. And you actually run through the numbers. You're like, you know, $25 a lead is really profitable for you, right? Advanced meta advertisers and the businesses that do the best, they don't typically generate the best return on ad spends. Because as you scale, your return on ad spend will decrease, inevitably. It is harder to acquire, it is more expensive, I should say, to acquire your 10,000th customer than your 50th customer, because there's always a proportion of the market that is just so keen and loves whatever it is that you sell that they kind of buy everything and you can gather up those people. But there's not many of them. The more you scale, the harder that is. But there is a trade-off that a lot of businesses understand where you think, I don't mind if my return on ad spend drops if my overall profit number, not as a percentage, as a number, is significantly better. That's a better business outcome. Much better to generate a 4x return on ad spend, spending $1 million a month, than a 10x return on ad spend, spending $10,000 a month. You make a lot more money at the lower return on ad spend number because you've achieved scale. So really have a think about what could you be willing to pay to acquire a customer. I'll give you some examples. I want to go even further for some businesses. There are many, many businesses where initial customer acquisition is loss-making. Many of the biggest, most successful businesses, that is true. Almost anything finance related. Banks, they pay way more to acquire you than they make from you initially. Mortgage companies, often the same. Insurance, they are playing a game of, we will turn you into repeat revenue over many years most likely, and we'll end up with a fantastic return on ad spend, but it might take 6 months or more for us to pay the initial cost of customer acquisition in the first place. And those are some of the biggest, most successful businesses in the world that operate this way. Lots of businesses in that category. It's actually another advantage that bigger advertisers have is typically they have more cash reserves and they can afford to be more aggressive on their customer acquisition than smaller businesses. So I think that a lot of small budget advertisers have this idea of like, I'm at a 2x ROAS. If I could just get to a 10x ROAS, I'll be like the big boys. And you're like, actually, some of the big boys might be operating at a 2x ROAS. They're just doing it much better in terms of retention and customer reactivation than you are. So it works for them in a way that a 2x ROAS doesn't work for you. I'm not saying you have to lose money as a small budget advertiser. Often you need profitability to be able to reinvest. But you might be fine with a 4 or 5x ROAS. You might not need a 10x ROAS to make it worth your while. My next recommendation is to reduce the number of variables. So we want to concentrate and consolidate, both from your resource capacity, mentally, time within your business, but also within your ad account so that we consolidate that conversion data and Meta has the best possible chance of getting out of the learning phase and then optimizing your campaigns to get you the outcome that you want to get. So I typically recommend that you focus on one offer only. If you sell a big range of products or you have multiple service offerings, which has sold the best, which do you make the most money from, focus in on that exclusively. Don't have lots of different campaigns. Don't have lots of different ad sets. You want to consolidate that down. So let's say we had 5 ad sets and we're generating 20 conversions a week. Well, that's 4 conversions per ad set on average. Much better to have the one ad set and have those 20 conversions going through the one ad set. Like I said, much more likely to get out of the learning phase, much easier for Meta to be able to optimize and draw conclusions and then put your ads in front of the right people and get you the results that you want. If you don't have historical data around which offer is most profitable, which sells the best, take a best guess. What are your competitors focusing on mostly? What do you have the best margins in? You can always adjust once you've got up and running, but fewer campaigns, often just one campaign, one ad set is the way to go. You can always look to scale and add complexity later on. In fact, if you do want more information about Facebook ad campaign structure and how we've adjusted this, because there are significant differences now to what we used to recommend, then I recommend you check out this video because I go through it all and I talk about how you want to start, which businesses want to stick with the one campaign, one ad set setup versus the alternative options and when you might want to change that as you go through your Meta ads journey. Let's go and check it out.